My guest today is a 3-time business owner, an EOS implementer, and someone who has learned as much from failure as success. Mark Stanley is the co-author of the Data Book, a seasoned advisor to over 100 leadership teams, and a champion of helping entrepreneurs turn complexity into clarity. In this episode, he shares 3 critical ideas every business leader should understand: how to truly know the market you're operating in, why gross profit matters more than revenue, and how speed creates a lasting competitive advantage. I'm Ryan Castle. This is Level 10 Leaders, where ideas are easy and execution is everything. Let's go. Mark Stanley, welcome along to the Level 10 Leaders podcast. So great to have you on the show today.
Hey, Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. I appreciate you having me here and you being here.
How about you take the host role and I'll guest today? How about that?
Maybe we start that again.
I love that. Hey, Mark, we like to kick off these episodes with a few fast fact questions so our audience can get to know you a little bit. You ready for a fast fact round?
Ready, let's go.
Okay. Food, we're going to start off with the easy one. Are you a breakfast or dinner guy?
Dinner.
Yeah? What are you looking forward to tonight? Do you know?
Steak.
Same on my
I don't know, but
well.
Steak and pork, I'm from the Midwest, so steak and pork are always top of the menu. Chicken's a distant third.
Assuming there's a side of corn in there as well.
Oh, for sure, if you can get it. Better sometimes than others.
Alrighty. On holiday, would we find you doing something adventurous like bungee jumping, or would you be relaxing with a cocktail on the pool lounger?
I'm absolutely relaxing with a cocktail in the pool lounger. But I am curious, I am pretty curious. So I'm adventurous and curious too. So I do like, exploration, discovery, and learning are 3 things that I like to do. But if it's bungee jumping or lounge chair, I'm probably lounge chair.
Yeah, I like it. And is there a favorite cocktail?
I like a drink called the Skip. It's basically a vodka soda with a splash of lemonade.
Oh, you sound like a guy looking after his figure.
Well, there's 60 calories a piece if you do a diet lemonade.
Okay, there we go. Nice.
Low-cal lemonade is 60 calories.
It's basically a health drink.
Basically a health drink. Yeah, you drink it, you get skinnier.
Yeah, there we go. You mentioned learning. Do you have a favorite form of learning? Do you like to learn through books? Do you like videos? Do you like podcasts? What's your medium of preference?
Yeah, usually I like to read. So I'm one, I like to get the book and actually read the book and highlight and put notes on the side. Kindle's great. It's convenient. Helps you take 6, 7 books on the road. Harder to pack those. But in terms of like sitting, reading, that's my thing.
Okay. And once you've been through a book, highlighted, written in the column, etc., how often do you return to that book and look at your comments and highlights again?
Rarely. In my library at home, I have 2,500 books. I stopped counting at that point. I'll tell you, I have not read them all. But what I do is I take a new book. I get several book recommendations a week. I don't buy all of them from the clients, but I'll take them and I'll skim them at this point. And I'll find the things that agree with me and I'll highlight that. And I'll find the things, more importantly, that disagree with what I think is true and spend more time on that. So I'm looking for the things that are a little bit counterintuitive or challenges some assumptions I may have about the world of the market. As you find, there's a lot of the same stuff is written in different words over time. And so it's like, okay, that concept is just like this, but what makes this a little bit different? So I look for the variance in what I think I know to the new stuff that I can learn. So that allows you to get through a lot of content pretty quickly if you go about it that way.
Yeah. And Mark, I know you're a real forward thinker around AI. Are you using AI in this way at all to do book summaries for you and have it compare and contrast to other things you're already thinking about?
That's a great thing. I have not used it very much in that way. I have a book subscription I have called Read in Graphics. And one of the things that it does is it takes a written text and makes it into a graphical summary. And that's been very helpful. So some of the bigger, better books that have been out there, they put it in graphic summary form. I learn best through pictures. Mm-hmm. So that helps kind of take that idea and put it into a picture. Oh, and so that's really well done. So I use that quite a bit. And again, so I'll print those and sometimes I'll use those in the session room. Like, here's 5 dysfunctions of a team. Here's a read and graphic summary of it.
Yeah.
To accelerate the learning. Most of the time when I'm teaching, I teach in pictures too. So I tend to draw things and then try to make it into an image that sticks.
Sure.
So I learn that way and I teach that way.
Yeah. Good. Cats or dogs? What's the preference?
Dogs.
Dogs. Do you have a dog right now?
I have a dog, Maui. Maui is an Australian Labradoodle. So the Australian part of that, some people confuse that with an Australian Shepherd. And the Australian part of the Labradoodle is a Spaniel mix in there. So there's a Poodle, Labrador, and a little Spaniel mix. I don't know how they do that in a three-way dog, but somehow they end up with that mix. I didn't ask her a lot of questions, but she's absolutely lovely dog. Her name's Maui.
Love it. And is Maui after the island in Hawaii?
Maui's after the island in Hawaii. That was an original name 10 years ago when we got her as a pup. Today, Maui, Mawi, is named after a character in a Disney movie. So there's a lot of Maui dogs today named after the Disney character. But we named her after one of the places we love the most, which is Maui.
Love that. Alrighty, routine-wise, Mark, are you an early riser or a night owl?
Well, that's shifted. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm an early riser. So I'm typically out of bed about 5:15 in the morning. Usually hit a workout about 5:45, 6:30. Back in the saddle for an hour. Have some breakfast on the job about 8:15. Then work the day, cocktail, steak, done. Clock it out.
Love it.
In bed by 9.
I'm curious why you've changed. So it would appear that your natural disposition was more of a night owl. Why was that an intentional effort to go to an early riser?
My significant other's an early riser, and when she gets out of bed, so do I. There's nothing I can do about it. She's up. She's up doing her thing, and I just can't sleep, so I must be up too. How that works. So I was forced into it by marriage.
I think many of us have adopted behavioral patterns based on our significant other. So
there's no way she's staying up past 9:30, even on a Friday or Saturday night. That I do know.
Okay. If you were to watch a movie on the weekend, Mark, what genre would you be? A thriller, a comedy, a drama? What's your vibe?
Yeah, I kind of like action adventure. Or like my favorite movie in the recent history is F1. I thought that was a spectacular movie. You're in the action. I like the Mission Impossible movies with Tom Cruise and that latest one that he did where he's in the submarine. And it was just like fantastic. So action adventure. Some thoughtful movies too, like Interstellar. I like that one with Matthew McConaughey. I like thoughtful movies like that too that get you thinking. Mostly in that genre.
Nice one, Mark. Hey, appreciate those insights. Let's turn our attention to a little more of a business context. And what I'd like you to do is just give us your top 3 insights that we're going to unpack on the podcast today. So let's talk about those first, and then we'll go a bit further. Yeah,
thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the questions ahead of time, gave me a chance to reflect. And one of the things as a 3-time business owner, I'm just talking about a 3-time failed business owner. I've had 1 or 2 that were successful, but I learned a lot of things, and there's some scars in that. So early on, coming out of 2000 to 2002, I had a table manufacturing business. I had that for a couple of years with a couple of other guys. Steel distribution, I did that for about 7 years. Right during the Greater Recession or Lesser Depression, whatever you want to call it. And I had a home building business for a while. And each one of those taught me something really a little bit different. First thing in the table business, we bought in when it was going from 3/4-inch plywood table to blow molded tables. Today, blow molded tables are everywhere. But we bought in when the market was changing. And so what I learned was, you better really understand the market that you're in before you make big investments. Otherwise, they can change on you really quickly. And so I missed that. I should have done more research in the market. So be clear on what's market you're operating in today and how that market could or likely to change in the future. In that steel distribution business, what that was about was really the impact of gross profit. So we would tend to sell on price, and we tried to get a 30% gross margin on every sales dollar that we had. And what I learned was it's really about the gross profit, the dollars you keep from the revenue after you've purchased the steel. We had a run rate every week of about, it wasn't huge, but we had about a $30,000 a week run rate. And we needed to put enough steel on our 4 trucks that go out every day to generate at least 30,000 gross profit by the end of the week. And I knew by Wednesday, really, if we were going to make it by Friday at 5 or whether or not we weren't. So, that gross profit is something that I continue to teach entrepreneurs, and I call it gross profit over opex. Kind of this third thing is, speed is a competitive advantage is another thing I've learned along the way. So in the home building business, right, if you can build spec homes and you can get them done in 180 days, and sell them, you win. Anytime after about that 6-month mark, your your carry costs start eating you alive. So if you're going to do something, you got to get it in, get it moving, and pick up the speed to maintain a competitive advantage. And so kind of those 3 lessons from those 3 failed attempts at business.
Hey, thank you for starting with where the lessons are, because that is often where the very best learning is at.
Yes.
Maybe before we unpack...
Very expensive learning.
Very. Maybe before we unpack those a little bit, Mark, can you just tell us a little bit more about your journey? So you're a multi-time business owner. You're also a professional EOS implementer. You're an author. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey?
Since I was young, I wanted to be in business. I wanted to own my own business. And during that time, right, so I had a paper route. I did agricultural work like walking beans and baling hay and that kind of thing. And then but I always had kind of my own business. Then I went to school. I knew that finance was the language of business. I didn't know what I wanted to do in business, but I did know that I better learn the numbers. So I got a finance degree. From that, I went to a large company. And in that company, I was there for 10 years. Very entrepreneurial business. It's about 800 million, not large by some scales, but 800 million at that time in the late 80s, right, was a big company. And I went through corporate finance to continuous quality improvement to strategy. So over a 10-year period, I had a lot of different roles. From there, I did kind of hung my shingle out in early 30s, bought the manufacturing business, then the steel distribution, then the home building. But all along that, a parallel path was this company I have called the Y Company. So those 3 businesses I own, trying to make them more passive income, but my active income was through the Y Company. It had 3 lives. First life it had were training and development. We taught Lean and Six Sigma. We did that for 2,000 belts. Then we went in, I did supply chain consulting for about 6-7 years. That was around theory of constraints, had a bunch of large projects. And then the recent years, I've done the entrepreneurial operating system. So started that in coincidentally, February of 2009, about the same time I bought into the steel distribution business. And since that time, I've worked with about 120 companies and have 1,700 session days. And so what you get, right? So with the scars that I've had along the way, the learning, some formal education, some reading, some working in the moment, in emotionally packed sessions some days where it's not logical, it's emotional, people are upset, they can't see the path forward, they lack clarity. I really came to this realization that I think that at this point in my life and career, I might be able to offer something to those entrepreneurial leaders, to help them avoid some of the scars that I've earned over the last 25 years of kind of doing it on my own, and the experience I've had in the session room, learning from others, because you're in the moment, right, with a leadership team at sometimes the time when they need you the most. It's like, okay, now you have to summon all of this experience and all of this book learning into some practical advice and practical tools to help them get clear on what they need to do to move forward.
And Mark, you're also an author. And tell us about your book.
So in the EOS world, there's a model. It has 6 components: vision, people, data, issues, process, traction. Each one of those, so the traction book, a couple hundred pages, takes the whole model. Then each one of those components has a mastery series book. So I've got the good fortune to have co-authored the data book with Mark O'Donnell and Angela Calamus. And it's right in my sweet spot.
Okay, and I'm looking at your top 3 insights that you shared, and I can see a data stream going through every single one of those. So I wonder if we go back to understanding the market. You shared a example that was painful for you around the transition of what was going on in table manufacture. Do you have a story you could share around maybe in your own business or one of your clients that you've worked with where you were able to get on the good side of that, of understanding the market? Maybe they were able to increase growth because they were understanding the market and they were able to go somewhere, or maybe they avoided a poor investment because of that clarity they had around understanding the market. And the second part of my question is, when you are thinking about understanding the market, what data points are you looking for?
Both excellent questions. You've got me really, my brain is firing pretty heavy on this. So, I would say this, Most organizations I work with, it's not so much knowing the market that they're operating in, it's that they're trying to operate in too many markets. So they haven't fully exploited or got squeezed all of the juice out of the existing lemon of the market, right? And so most of the companies I work with are a small percentage of a large market, and all they need to do is stay laser-like focused. Orville Redenbacher just did popcorn. He did a really good job at it and did it nice. So what I try to do is actually take the market with my clients and just thin it down and just say, all right, what is that target? Geographic, where are they? Demographic, who are they? Psychographic, what do they value? And if we can get laser-like focused on that, then we actually can be more specialist at delivering our value proposition to that market. Most of them want to chase the shiny thing, the shiny market, shiny market, shiny market. The grass is always greener. I have construction companies that want to go to another city because they think it's easier to compete in another city where they're not known than to stay in a city where they are known, where they're a small percent of the market. So like, why are you interested over there when you've got more market share like right here? So it's really kind of keeping them corralled. But that for me is all part of understanding the market you're in. Then what the data points are. For me, in the perfect world, you'd want to know what market share you are percentage of. So I'm a 5% of the market. In reality, until you get to be about 50 or 60% of the market, it doesn't really matter what percent of market share you're in. Just assume you're a really small part of a big market. And then how do we position ourselves so that we can get to that market a little bit faster, right? So the data point would be, how fast is your product or service adopted, or how well are you at grabbing market share away from your competitors? Not because you view them as competitors, but because you're so good at delivering what you're designed to deliver as your business.
I love that. I love that focus. How do you hold this conversation with your visionary clients who are, oh yeah, but look at the next state over. That looks shiny and new over there.
Shiny and new.
How do you shape that conversation with them?
Yeah, see, those are very difficult conversations to have because the visionary by nature is designed. I mean, they can't help themselves but chase shiny things. And so this is really kind of the job of the integrator, is to say, not ever, just not now. So let's park this on the long-term issues list. Let's address it. But we've got to stay laser-like focused because we're at a critical time of implementation of this thing that we're doing. And if we lose focus, we're going to lose the mission here. So let's just stay focused over the next 60, 90, 180 days. And then you kind of put it on the integrator to do that. Sometimes what I like to have the integrator do is distract the visionary with something that's helpful for the business that isn't involved in the day-to-day business. So go do some research on what you think the new AI platform is going to do for the construction industry, right? So you feed their visionary tendencies with a project that isn't directly in changing the day-to-day nature of the business.
Yeah.
Interfering. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mark, how do you think about market risk? So hyper focus. Totally, we all, I think, understand the operational benefit, the reduced friction of staying very, very focused. How do you think about evaluating the risk? So if I decide to be a construction company focused in a very small specialist sector in my home state, what if my home state has a huge recession or some very key economic factors change what's going on in that market? How do you even bother trying to think about that?
That's a very complex issue, to think about. So there's all kinds of threats coming in. I think of it as I've heard this term a while ago called a VUCA environment. So it's volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. And so this is what's happening faster and faster and faster to the entrepreneurial leaders. It's at that point where you really have to lock down on what you do best and make sure that the world knows that this is what you do best. And so we in the EOS world on the VTO, we have a thing called the marketing strategy. And it really is the leadership team deciding very well on four things. What is our target market specifically, right? And I want to laser it in right dead spot in the middle. Bullseye on the dartboard. What is it? And then second, what are the uniques and differentiators we offer that market? And what's our value proposition to it? But it isn't just enough to communicate what the value proposition is. We have to build the entire enterprise to deliver it. So Every person in the business, top to bottom, left to right, every process we have needs to be pointed at delivering this unique set of values to that market. And the more laser-like focused we are, and the more we involve people in that, the better we actually deliver that value. The third thing is, what is the process in which we engage our customers? Engagement means from the very first time we meet them to the speed at which we build trust to our delivery of service to them. And then how do we get ongoing levels of service that we can continue to deliver that's sticky and ongoing levels of value so they really can't find ways to pull away from us. And then last thing is if there's something that we can guarantee or promise, and all that is that last little thing that says they have a fear or anxiety to doing business with us, what is something that we can offer that makes it easy for them to do business with us, something we can guarantee or our brand promise. But everybody has to be on it.
Can you give us an example of that last point around the guarantee or the brand promise?
Yeah, I have a client right now. They're a large construction company, and they offer their clients, they're going to deliver it on time, or they get 10% of their money, their fee back. They've paid out 3 times. Wow. And each one of those times, they wrote the story. It's a 1-pager. It's a little bit like not a badge of honor because you don't want to be known for paying out guarantees. But it's so important to them that they said, here's a situation where we paid out the guarantee. Here's the other situation. Here's the third situation. And when people ask, are you serious about this? They have these artifacts that they can bring forward and say, this is the story. And they're like, oh, you guys are for real. And therefore, they just won a piece of business, and they were able to get 8% more fee because that guarantee communicated to the new client that they were serious about delivering what their promises.
Yeah, and standing true to their word. Because I think we're all aware of many construction companies that will take the lowball approach and then through variations try to make money back over and above. And it leads to poor client relationships, bad outcomes all around. So testament to them. That's a great example. Thanks, Mark.
And this group has been growing at about a 18-20% rate pretty consistently over the 5 years that I've worked with them.
Wow. Good job. Good job.
And their backlog, what's really fun is in construction, their backlog already goes into 2027.
That's a nice pipeline to have.
Yep. A lot of security. The owner sleeps well at night.
Yeah, totally. And it makes all sorts of decisions easier, right? If you're making investments in capital equipment or hiring people, knowing that you've got that pipeline coming up, there's a lot of that. It's a good place to be. Here's a quick break. If you're a CEO or senior leader scaling and growing business, listen up. Here's the truth. Most companies don't have a strategy problem, they have an execution problem. So here's a quick win. Take 2 minutes to complete the Execution Strength Diagnostic. Get an instant report that shows you exactly where your execution is leaking. Take the diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. It's free, it's fast, and it'll show you the real gap between your strategy and what's actually happening day to day. Now let's get back to the podcast. Let's talk gross profit. In the introduction, you mentioned about this ratio of gross profit to opex. So 2 very clear data points. Can you unpack that a bit for us and maybe share some examples?
Yeah. So one of the things that I teach is this thing called the profit power ratio. And, a lot of times people talk about growth in terms of revenue growth. And what I learned in the steel distribution business is it's not about revenue growth. There's at one point, I remember celebrating, we had the best week in terms of sales we had in the entire time that I owned it over, 72 months. It was one of the best weeks that we've had. And head of sales comes in and we're having a couple of beers. And we're like, okay, great. Boom, high five and best sales week ever. I went back and did the numbers and realized that we lost ground on gross profit. And all we did that week was stress people out, work the drivers harder, drove the trucks longer, and our warehouse crew was worn out by the end of the week, and we didn't make any more money. I'm like, you know what? It's not about revenue; it's about gross profit, and it's about volume. So, how much gross profit did we generate? Of course, you need revenue to get to gross profit.
Sure.
And then what's our opex? Right? The opex for me is bringing it down to like, if I were to break the opex and divide it by 52. What's the nut that I have to cover every week for the privilege of being in business? For our distribution business, it was 30,000 a week. So 30,000 a week. So I knew on Monday morning, I wrote a check for 30,000. By the end of Friday at 5, when we wrapped up shop, we needed to make at least $30,001 of gross profit. Or it wasn't, or the next week the check is bigger, right? That we have to write because we got to cover the bank. So I always feel like writing the check, 5 o'clock Friday, the bank's clearing it. So I knew every piece of steel, what the gross profit was. Every truck, I calculated what was on the truck for a gross profit that went out. On Monday, how much gross profit we had Monday, stack it up Tuesday, stack it up Wednesday, stack it up Thursday. If at Thursday at 3 o'clock, we were over that 30,000, I knew that Friday was going to be a good day. Okay. But if we got to Friday and I knew it already by Tuesday, Wednesday that week, that we weren't going to make it, then, it's a bad week. So now we came in at 28,000 of gross profit relative to the 30,000 opex. Now I've got to cover my 2,000 that I was short. Plus next week, it's another 30,000 I got to write. So the relationship between these two numbers ended up being what I called the profit power ratio. Our job in the great game of business is to grow gross profit at a much faster rate than opex. OPEX stair steps up as we add people, add buildings, add capability. As long as gross profit is going up at a faster rate, then we're building strength in our business. Okay. So here's an example. If I generate 30,000 gross profit and my OPEX is 30,000, it says 30 divided by 30. The answer is 1. I broke even, 0 profit. If I generated, I'm going to be off on the math, 40,000 gross profit against 30,000 OPEX, I take the 4 divided by the 3. It's something like 1.3 was my profit power ratio. However, if I came in at 10,000 against my 30,000, my profit power ratio was 0.33. I was underwater. So I want to be above 1. 1 is kind of like yellow. Then it starts to go green the further I get that way. And it's red at 1, right? I'm losing money. And so if we can get everybody on the leadership team and through the company understanding that what we're trying to do is move gross profit up at a much faster rate than OPEX, here's some dials and levers we can pull and push and turn to get gross profit up. Here's some dials and levers we can have that impact OPEX. Our goal is to strengthen that profit power ratio over time. That was the learning I got from the steel distribution business.
And it's such a good one. It reminds me of that golf analogy of drive for show, putt for dough. It's the top line revenue can be great, and we can all, as you shared in your example, we can all celebrate about smashing the big deal at a revenue level. But if it's not contributing to that profit power ratio, then who cares? So it's again the focus.
I heard it said this way. I'm not sure who said it, but revenue is vanity and profit is sanity.
Yeah.
So what we try to do, so every client I work with from an EOS perspective knows their profit power ratio.
And do you find that profit power ratio holds regardless of industry, regardless of organization size? It's just a universal number that works.
Yeah. There are some, including EOS implementers, by the way, there are some industries where I really don't have like a cost of goods sold or a directly variable cost. So revenue minus 0 equals gross profit. When revenue and gross profit are the same, then you just put revenue over OPEX. It's the same difference. But to the extent we can. So, but 95 times out of 100 gross profit over OPEX. Now, different industries have different, ranges of that, what might be good. So, so you take, and people ask me like, so what's good? Well, typical range is like 1.2 to about 1.5, but there are some industries that have like a 2 and 3 range, right? So I'm generating 2 times gross profit for every dollar I spend in OPEX. Just depends on your industry.
Okay. And if someone came to you and said, hey, Mark, I've got this great business, I'd like you to be an investor, is that the first number you'd ask?
I would want to look at the trend over time.
Of that number? Or
of that number, yeah. So it's a great number to measure quarter by quarter. It's pretty volatile month to month, very volatile week to week. So I'd want to look at a 3-year trend of that number. Then I can actually diagnose if I know what's happening to that number. And looking at their 24 months of their income statement, I can typically diagnose what strategies that they were employing at what point, because all that information is in that income statement and that profit power ratio. I know what they were trying to do. Sometimes you can see that they're cutting price to move revenue up, but then they put the pressure on the bottom line. So you just kind of, I'm not saying I'm a good CFO, but a good finance person can read the numbers. It's like a good musician can read the music, right? The music is the numbers, the financials.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. This has been a very good learning today for me, Mark. Thanks for the share. All right, let's talk about speed creates competitive advantage. I think the example you gave was the spec house builder, and if they can get that built and sold within 6 months, the extent of the interest cost on the project is maintainable and they can end up some profit. Where else have you seen speed being a really great competitive advantage? Have you seen examples of product development? Is it response times to clients? What are some other things you've observed that work well?
One of the things that's often left out, and we're really talking about time, and time is measured, one measure, speed, right? So it's time. And so when I'm talking speed, I'm talking about the cycle time relative to the touch time. Cycle time is like building a house. Click, I start April 1, boom, I'm done November 1. Took me 7 months to build it, okay? But how much was value actually being added in that 7 months? You can actually build a house if you had all the contractors lined up ready to go. You can actually build it in 2 months or less. You'll probably build it in a few days if you really got after it. But let's say my touch time is 2 months, my cycle time is 7 months. Where'd the other 5 months go? The house is waiting. It's waiting for the plumber, the plumber to do the rough it. It's waiting for the electrician to show up. They're off doing something else. And so every time there is waste in the system, something is waiting to happen. So when you think about speed, two things: speed is directly related to flow, and there's friction in the flow. So I want to do things to remove friction to get the flow faster. That principle applies in about everything. If I can get this new product to the market, I have an advantage over the other people who are bringing products to the market. Speed. If I can turn this mortgage faster, if I'm in the mortgage processing business, if I can get it done in 15 days versus 30 days, that helps, speed the flow of the money through the system. Inventory. How fast do I turn that inventory? You don't want your inventory to have birthdays, right? So I want that inventory coming to the warehouse and out. When I was in my steel distribution business, right, we started out with 6 inventory turns. That means every 2 months, the inventory's turning over. I got it to 18 turns.
Wow.
Right? That just means that now it's sitting on the floor for about, weeks at a time versus months at a time. So we want to move that faster. So every turn on inventory is one more turn of gross profit dollars, right? So I got the gross profit as I turned it over the investment. So if I had $1 million of inventory on the floor and I make 300,000 gross profit on that million. If I turn it one more time, I got 600,000 on that million. If I turn it one more time, I got 900,000 on that million. Plus I took the million down to 600 to 500. So I had less invested because I was turning it faster. All that did was free up cash. So this idea of speed comes out in flow, comes out in friction, comes out in every industry. And it's the relationship between how long it takes to do something and the value added time. I want to shrink. I want cycle time to equal touch time in most cases.
Yeah. And my
best example of that, by the way, is F1 racing. If you watch it, I'm a fan. They're 3 seconds in the pit. Cycle time is 3 seconds. Touch time is nearly 3 seconds. All right. That's the closest I've ever seen cycle time equal touch time.
Yeah. And what did I think Red Bull managed a 1.9 second pit stop last season?
Isn't that amazing?
Just absolutely.
If you go back a few seasons, Verstappen won in the last race of the season by not very much over Lewis Hamilton. And if you take the hundreds of thousands of seconds, that race was won by, it's won in the pits, right? So 3 seconds is considered about average, but 2.8 is really hard to get to. 1.9 is like everything went well. So how do we keep taking the speed, making it faster? Because it makes a difference.
So I have to ask, Mark, who do you support in Formula One? Who's your team?
Well, I was liking Verstappen and Red Bull. Well, now I'm kind of like in this McLaren team because they're orange. So I'm a McLaren fan. I like those guys. I like Verstappen. I like him as a competitor, man. He's a stone cold killer, but he's a hard guy to back.
I have incredible respect for his ability.
Yes,
I don't doubt that he is the best driver on the grid.
Yeah,
he's just slightly harder to like at a personal level than maybe some of the other drivers.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
But I am, without turning this into a Formula One podcast, I'm also a McLaren fan, of course, because the team was founded by Bruce McLaren, who was a New Zealander, so my hometown.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, very good. Yeah. So I like it's Zach Brown's the manager.
Yes,
I like him. He's a good dude.
He is. Yeah, he brings some good energy to that team.
He's good.
Yeah. That's cool. Alrighty, slightly. Let's bring this back. If I was to sit down and read the data book, what would be some great takeaways I'd get from it?
It was exciting to be a part of that and be invited in as a co-author. What we're trying to do in that book was really three things. First thing we want to do is help you get a scorecard that you absolutely love. Right. So let's dial that in. A lot of leadership teams I work with, they come into their scorecards are messed up. They've lost their way and they're red and they're not doing anything about it. And so if the scorecard's red too often, it's kind of like every night I cook and my smoke alarm goes off in my kitchen, I just take the batteries out, right? It doesn't mean much. So if we can help them find a pathway to a better scorecard. Second thing we want to do is, one thing that I love about EOS is it's an accountability and execution system. And it's really a system for high performers because high performers actually love accountability. They want to know how they're winning. And as leaders, we actually do a disservice for our highest performers if we don't give them a measure, help them find a measure of what winning looks like. So the second part of the book is really helping discern down, like, what for your highest performers, what's the measure that tells them they're winning so they can be satisfied and keep setting the bar higher and higher. So that's the second part. The third part of the book, my favorite chapter is cash, right? It's chapter 5. And in cash, what we're really trying to do is simplify the numbers down to a 5-number income statement so that everybody doesn't have to be scared of the numbers and they can lean in on the financials. Because if you're a leader, you at least need to be conversational with the numbers, right? The finances. Not asking you to be experts. You have a CFO or a finance leader that's good, that's perfect with the language and fluent in it. We just need everybody to be conversational. So one of the things we try to do is just break it down into, here's your 5-number income statement: revenue, directly variable costs, gross profit, opex to net operating income. Profit power ratio, I don't believe is in the book. That's something that, if you wrote a book that you wanted to put everything in, it would be too thick. So Some things just don't make the cut. But we do talk about the power of 1% more gross profit and what the net operating income looks like on that. And then the idea of break even. So these are just a handful of simple concepts that help, people that might be a little shy on the numbers be a little bit more, be able to lean in a little bit more, because we want everybody to lean in when we start talking about, how the business makes money and how all of us can work together with our teams to help the business make more money.
Nice.
No margin, no mission, by the way.
Yeah, too true. Mark, so you have the book. I understand you also run some workshops around the core of the book and actually help people implement. Tell us a bit about that.
So really excited about that. So we have this. It's kind of a little bit of a flywheel. It says profit feeds more purpose, allows you to make more profit, allows you to feed more purpose. So this profit kind of purpose kind of flywheel a little bit. And we have this, and we know that the entrepreneurial leaders among us and the clients that we work with are struggling to dial in their scorecard, make sure that everybody has a number, and then with the financial part of this. And so, so we put the workshop together to help create data-driven leaders, because the data-driven part of this actually impacts every other part of the EOS model, right? It helps us dial in the vision better, helps us get right people, right seat, the people analyzers that, gets to the root cause of issues faster using data. It dials your processes and makes sure they're followed by all and being productive. And then make sure, and it's an important part of the L10 meeting, the quarterly sessions, from the traction component. So data is a force multiplier that makes all other components bigger and better. So if we can get strong there, then it makes all of it better. So we take the workshop on the road, and like we talked about, the three things they bring in their scorecard, and we call it an extreme scorecard makeover. So 9 out of 10 people bring in an extreme scorecard, right? A scorecard in need of love, think kind of broken down house.
Sure.
And we're modeling it. And it's like, here's before and here's after. Second thing we do is we help them walk through the Getting What You Want tool so that everybody can find a number. And then in the afternoon, we walk them through the 8 cash flow drivers. We walk them through some cash flow driver exercises that help them find real money. Now, last week, and so we're going to do 20 of these on the road. We try to hope to get 100 people in the room 20 times and have real impact. I just in Denver yesterday. We had 50 people in the room. We were able to uncover about $43 million worth of impact in the room across 55 people. And that was their reported numbers. So we go table by table. What was the impact that we found? We were in California on Thursday, and we found 49 million in that room with 26 people. So, we're having measurable real bottom line dollar impact. Now, it's easy to calculate in the room. They still have to go get it outside of the room. But at least they're clear on what the impact is, what the benefit is. If I do this, this is what's at stake. Here's what we're going to do outside of the room to get our team engaged to go get the money.
Nice. And Mark, if people would like to join one of your workshops, where can they find information about those?
Yeah. So the book was, harness your numbers to go from uncertain to unstoppable was the tagline of the book. So we took this idea of unstoppable and helping data-driven leaders be unstoppable, and we created the Unstoppable Data-Driven Leader Workshop. Therefore, the company is unstoppable-biz.com. So all the workshop information is out there. Every week I do a weekly newsletter that gets posted out there as well. And there's some tools that you can download, but unstoppable-biz.com is everything you need for that.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And we'll make sure we put that link in the show notes so it's nice and easy for people to find.
In the workshop, we are all over the country in the workshop.
And Mark, are you picking yourself up a 10% cut of all this impact that you're creating? Like, are you getting a commission on this $43 and $49 million you helping these entrepreneurs find?
We do offer a guarantee, by the way, in the workshop. So the workshop is $9.95. If you don't find 10 times that number in the workshop, we'll give you your money back. Now, somebody questioned me on that the other day. I'm like, listen, I don't think the waste that we can find is 5%. I think it's 2%. I said, okay, great. I'll come in. I'll help you find the 5% that I believe it is. You think it's 2. We'll just split the 3 gap, right? So I just take 1.5% of the waste.
Seems fair.
Seems fair?
Yeah.
So you think you can get to 2? I didn't get to 5. Let's split the gain.
Like it.
No taker on that one. I'm still trying.
Yeah. God loves a try. Hey, Mark, thank you for sharing those insights so quickly. In summary, understanding the market, gross profit, or the profit power ratio is the slight extension of that, and then speed creates competitive advantage, and the value of being really clear on your data and doing data-driven leadership right across the board. Thank you for sharing those insights. I think being really, really helpful for our audience. What are you most looking forward to? What do you got coming up that you're excited about?
Oh, what I got coming up, we're rebuilding the workshop, right? So we ended up with version 4, but as you move along, we did 11 last year. We've done 12 and 13 this year. We have a little bit of a window. I'm looking forward to rebuilding the workshop, right? So some of the insights that we've gained and learned along the way are going to be even better in version 5. And so we'll build that out over the next few weeks. Back on the road June 11th, but I got this window of time with a whole bunch of ideas I can't wait to do.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate your expertise and your time.
Thank
really
you,
valuable.
Ryan.
You have a great day.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
You bet. Thanks, Mark.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Level 10 Leaders. If today's episode hit home, here's one action to take right now. Do the execution strength diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. mark.us/execution. It's fast, free, and will show you exactly where your execution is leaking. Hit subscribe, share this with one person who needs to break through the ceiling and crush their growth goals. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll show you exactly how to level up to level 10.